Welcome everyone to the Weekly Stash, where we talk about everything going on in the comic book world. I'm Steve McGauley, editor-in-chief of TMStash.com. With me, as always, Mr. DC, Mr. Marvel, Ed Garrett, Joseph Gagel. How we doing tonight?
Doing great. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Steven.
Thank you much. I'm still recuperating from my long travels around the world, but it was worth it. Anyone who likes diving, go to Fiji. It's amazing. But we're not here to talk about diving. Let's talk about what's going on in the comic book world, and most importantly, let's just get right to the meat of it. And Gail Simone is off of Batgirl.
Yes, they're going to have a new Batgirl team, a brand new look for her. They're moving her to the suburbs, to a suburb called Burnside. They're going to have something happen in the last issue of Gail's run where her armory look will no longer be available to her. Sound like there's going to be a huge fire. So she's going to be putting a new costume together. The new writers are Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, and a new artist named Babs Tarr, and I cannot think of a more appropriate name for someone to work on Batgirl than Babs. But it's a sort of an indie look, but the costume looks real interesting, and there's already a lot of folks who are getting cosplay things together with this new uniform. It's sort of like a leather top with the cape is literally snapped onto it, but it looks really good.
I imagine we will see lots of new Batgirls in San Diego. Here.
I have a feeling you're right. And it makes sense. I mean, we're talking pre-show on here. I would hesitate to follow Gail Simone's run on Batgirl, no matter how good a writer I was, especially trying to take the same lines and the same stories that she was doing. So, in effect, they're giving a fresh start for the new team. Hope it goes real well. I'll be obviously watching that with great anticipation. And today there are a lot of things on Twitter right now with some general hints as to where Gail may be putting her next efforts for DC. And while it's far from confirmed, it really looks like we may be seeing a revival of one of my favorite series, Secret Six. She's got a lot of tweets with the word secret repeated over and over again. So I'm hoping this is it. That's a series that ended just before the New 52 started. And it had people like it had characters like Bane, Catman, which she took from being a rather obscure character and made him exceptionally awesome, Scandal Savage, Ragdoll, and a host of others, and I cannot wait to see that if that's going to be the thing. That'll probably get announced at Comic-Con, which is coming in a couple of weeks.
Should see lots of big news coming from Comic-Con here, and some of it kind of trickling out going forward. So we will do a little preview show here next week. See what we have to look forward to with Comic-Con and bring you all the up-to-date news that's coming from Comic-Con in a couple weeks here. Yeah, that is definitely the biggest news that we've had in a while. Especially seeing the Gail Simone, because originally we just heard Gail Simone was off of earlier this week. She's off of Batgirl, and everyone was like, "What? Why?" That was my reaction, but it would make sense that they're moving her to a new project that they want to revive, and Secret Six would be a good one for her to be writing on.
And honestly, she's had a long run on Batgirl. For DC and the New 52, this is an awfully long run to get to be on one title. So I'm glad that she was able to do it. She was off at one time, sort of in the middle of a run, and the fans had a huge backlash and brought her back in. And obviously, they thought this one out a lot more, and it does sound like that she's excited for whatever is coming next, hopefully Secret Six.
Definitely. So, what else? What do we have going on in the Marvel world, Joe?
Well, this week was a pretty good Spider-Man week, and I'm going to start off with the 100th anniversary special of Marvel. The year is, I think it's 2061 is the year, and this issue is kind of like it leads you into the last part of a story they've been building, or that may or may not have happened. But it's really neat. Spider-Man and Eddie Brock are fighting over the Techno Symbiote suit because once again it's too powerful for any one person. They're both got the best of, and Parker wakes up just in time to see the Kingpin shoot Eddie Brock in the head, killing him and taking the suit for himself. Now, at first glance, this, you know, and the artwork, by the way, is fantastic. This is a really well drawn book. By I don't know if I'm saying this guy's name right. Hyuk Lee does it, but you know, we see also in this book why Peter Parker is the Amazing Spider-Man, because this techno suit can control any piece of technology on the planet, basically giving the Kingpin the ultimate power he's always wanted. But the one thing Parker thinks about is, I've got to head north. I've got to head north. And he's getting out of town. He's got to get out of town so that he can get to the woods and make a fire, because he knows that if there's anything the symbiote hates, it's fire. And it's a really well done story, because you know it shows you that, you know, even without the suit, you know, he knows what to do to win, and he does. And it was a really good book. They did one with the Fantastic Four last week, and this week they're going to be doing another one. I'll talk about that later. But this 100th anniversary specials that have been taking place in the future are very good. Next up, I've got the Return of Spider-Man 2099, and a really good first issue. Writer Peter David, he's the guy that did the original series, and they brought him back for this series. And of course, he's not in the future, but he's in the present time. And it's just a really good introduction book, kind of to show you that, you know, that they haven't really lost a step in this character or the writing, and how he fits into this world as he's trying to get back home. So that's another really good one to check out. And the last little bit of Spider-Man I'm going to talk about comes in Original Sins #3. At the now these books are basically a short stories of the little things that happen that don't get mentioned in the big story. And one of them is a small story about a guy at the Daily Bugle who discovers that once upon a time J. Jonah Jameson wrote a good story about Spider-Man. And when he finds out, he fires him and burns the story. But it was a really neat little story, because the guy's reading it, and then at the end it says, "This guy will be something special if my name isn't J. Jonah Jameson." And then he's like, "What are you doing down here? Get out of here!" You know. And so it was really neat in that respect, because you've always known that he never liked Spider-Man, and it was neat to see that at one time that he was actually a fan. And the last little bit I'm going to touch on is the new Wolverine. We've moved into 2 Months to Die, and in this issue, it's kind of a build issue where he's accepting what he has to do in the future. He can't be the loner anymore. He can't be the guy to do everything by himself. He's accepting the help of his friends. He's gone back home to the X-Men, and he said, "This is what's been going on. I'm sorry, but I had to do this, and now moving forward, we have to do this together." So it was a pretty neat issue in that regards. And for some more Wolverine news to go along with that, after he dies, they've been talking about a short-run series they're going to do called The Legacy of Logan, where we see how the void of the Marvel Universe, especially people that are close to him, or that have anything to do with him, like Sabretooth, Mystique, his son, X-23, who's a clone, the X-Men, people, the void that's left in the Marvel Universe in his absence. And they've hinted that they've got somebody in mind to fill that void. I don't know how or the capacity, but it's part of the plan, and I'm pretty excited. Even though they're getting rid of him, there's still going to be stories about Logan. So.
Oh yeah, they're not going to kill him off completely. I mean, come on. This is Marvel.
Yeah.
No one's ever dead. Look at Spider-Man. Come on.
Well, they even talked about in that same thing with the Legacy of Logan. They were like, well, a lot of people are already saying, "Oh, he'll be back in 6 months," and they were like, "Well, maybe so, but they kind of roundabout said we're planning on him being gone for a little while at least." So I'm gonna guess a year. That's me, or maybe whenever the next big X-Men crossover comes into play, then they'll bring him back or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. They'll bring him back when they need a spike in something, when they have something to advertise. That's how it always goes.
Maybe the next movie with Hugh Jackman. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Right. Awesome. Ed, what do we got going on in Indies?
Well, let me hit a couple of DCs real quick first.
Do that.
Yeah, this past week, Batgirl 33, Gail Simone still there. She's sort of putting the original Birds of Prey back together a little bit at a time. The Earth 2 Huntress, who's been showing up in World's Finest, came and met up with Batgirl and Black Canary, and they've even brought in, they're bringing in everybody to go against Nightfall, and there's even a call out to Coral City for Catharsis to come in, so we got to see one person at least from the movement coming in. That's a pretty awesome thing to see. They're really building toward a huge end to her run on Batgirl. Detective 33 was Icarus Part 4, where you've got Batman trying to track down the drug, and Harvey Bullock, who is a detective now, determined to prove in his mind that Bruce was behind all of this. But you're still seeing some good detective skills, and we do finally find Batman and Harvey Bullock going toe-to-toe at the end of this issue, and I can't wait to see how that plays out next book. Batman Eternal continues to be an amazing series. Jason Bard is sort of a young Jim Gordon, but this guy's willing to cross a few lines that Gordon's not willing to cross. And meanwhile, you have Jim Gordon's response to the offer that was given him by his serial killer son that he could escape if he wanted to escape. That's a really good series. The one I was underwhelmed by a little bit, and I'm disappointed in having to say that, is Grayson #1. This is the replacement series for Nightwing with Dick Grayson joining up with a spy agency called Spiral that is looking to find out the secret identities of all the heroes in the DCU. And so he's sort of a mole in the organization. He meets the new version of Helena Bertinelli, who in old continuity was Huntress. And he's sending messages back to Mr. Malone, which is an inside joke because when Batman tries to pretend to be a crook and infiltrate the underworld, he uses the identity of Matches Malone. It's a good spy story. There's nothing wrong with it except for the fact that it's supposed to be Dick Grayson. And I'm hoping it gets better, but it left me as just a little bit underwhelmed. On the indie scene, though, the biggest thing for me, and Joe, you'll probably want to talk about this too, is Armor Hunters #2 for Valiant. We're learning more about the nature of the Exo Man-O-War armor and why the Hunters are so concerned. Apparently, this armor slowly takes over the body and psyche of whoever is wearing this armor. And then when it does, it wreaks havoc on whatever world it's on, which is why they're trying to get rid of all the armors, and why they feel like they've got to decontaminate the world and by that basically destroy the world. But for some reason, Eric of Dacia is not affected, so far at least, but Livewire, who is a wonderful character, briefly wore the armor, and so now she's wondering, could she be infected? So this series keeps ramping things up. Every issue seems to get a little bit wilder. Were you able to read it this week?
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things was this was a little confusing for me, but I assume it will get explained over time. But can't recall the guy's name, but he was the guy that was in charge of the Armor Hunters, and how he kind of hinted on, it's time for me to step down. I've been doing this too long. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You just, as far as I know, you may have been doing this, but you're the guy that's been leading this whole campaign. You're the guy that blew up Mexico City, and now you're done. I was like, wait. I need a little bit more. I need to know a little bit more about this. Why? And I'm curious to know also why they feel like they have to let the dogs loose on the certain containment areas. Like I don't understand the contamination. Like how does him being somewhere, like what they really, to me, they didn't explain the effect him just being somewhere had. I got the whole armor takeover thing, and I thought that was pretty neat. But I don't know why, what detriment the armor has if it's in a city.
I think they're going to explain that more, but it does drive what their past actions were, because if there was a world where the armor had been all over the world, they literally destroyed the planet and then moved on to the next place where there was an armor. The other question being, is this the last armor? Because they've been getting a lot of other armors in different places. But it's certainly getting wilder. It's going to be continued this week in Unity #9. So
I was going to say, I also like how we're slowly seeing the rest of the Valiant heroes come together to get the plan moving. You know, you got like I really like the stuff with Bloodshot where they're like, somebody get this guy a T-shirt. You know.
Yeah. Bloodshot is a very cool character. This guy is one of the most awesome destructive forces in the universe, and he's sort of a mixture of Punisher and I'm not even sure what else, but somebody who really just doesn't have a lot of remorse and doesn't mind kicking a lot of butt wherever he goes.
I did like that last page where he had all that ammunition. It was just kind of like, get behind me, I'll be all right.
And he probably will be.
Yeah.
Now, that sort of leads into, if you don't mind me hitting what's coming up this week.
Go for it.
Okay, on the DC front, Batman Eternal keeps going on. Robin Rises Omega, where we've concluded the hunt for Robin's body, and now we're starting a new series, which that'll be interesting to see what they do. And then Teen Titans #1, they're relaunching the series, minus Kid Flash, who is off in the future now. But the team's pulled back together, and hopefully that'll be a good run for them. I'm an old Teen Titans fan from nearly 50 years back. But over at Valiant, it's not just Unity #9. Harbinger #25. This is a double-sized issue, and this continues to follow up on the death of one of their own in an earlier issue here, death of a renegade. That, I got to say, I've had an early look at Harbinger 25. It is pretty dang awesome, so you ought to be taking a look at it. Image will have Aphrodite 9 Cyber Force #1. That's a heck of a mouthful of a name. Dark Horse has Captain Action Cat, which is just an adorable series. Boom's got Translucid #4. And then one thing I've been wanting to talk about and haven't had a chance to talk a lot about, but this came up in the interview with Mark Waid at Heroes Con. He started Thrillbent, which is all digital comics. It takes advantage of the widescreen of laptops and tablets and gives you a chance to have an experience that's very different than the normal comic and even the normal digital comics, because a lot of digital comics are just put the page on the screen and scroll through the panels. This takes advantage of the fact that you're looking at one picture at a time, throws a lot of surprises at you, and there are several different books on there that are wonderful. Mark Waid's writing some of them. James Tynion, who also writes Batman Eternal, is writing some of them. A lot of other writers are involved. Barry Kitson's on there. Carl Kiesel's in there. And everything is there for $3.99 a month. You get access to all the books. And they update these books once a week with small chapters, but all of them are updating. They're high-quality series. Empire, and it's the big lead one from Mark Waid, which revives a series he did 10 years ago. And he's got another series called Insufferable, which is wonderful. It's like, what if Batman and Robin were really father and son, and Robin turned into a complete and absolute douchebag? It's a great series. And then James Tynion's got some really spooky stories there called The House in the Wall and The Eighth Seal. And The Eighth Seal is where the First Lady of the United States in his mythical world has some possession by some demonic entity. It's pretty great. So
It's
a
really
heck of a
cool
deal.
how they're doing that business model.
Yeah, I mean, for the cost of one comic, you get a month's load of comics. It's really worth checking out. I'm subscribing to Thrillbent. You just go to thrillbent.com. You can also download a Thrillbent app on your tablet, but it's well worth checking out.
I wish, I know they won't, but I wish DC and Marvel would get on board with this type of business model. I know it would kill the stores, but I think it would help a lot. I think they'd be
It's neat to see people explore the differences between print and digital. And what's funny is Mark Waid's not really trying to kill print. He actually owns an actual comic store in Indiana. But this model works really well. I will tell you, when I started checking out Insufferable, and there's not going to be any updates on that particular comic for a little while longer, although he is updating other books. But it's real rare when I start to read a series that I just go nuts and have to keep reading every issue until I get to the end. This is one of those that really drew me in like that. It was great. There was a line in it. I got to find this line for you guys because this was a treat. There's a guy who had been running beach parties and getting kids drunk and setting up things where there was a lot of assaults and a lot of people died. And this guy finally met his end. And the police captain was not too sad about it. He said he helped kids get stupid more often than a Texas school book.
Ah!
And I thought, man, that is a classic line. It's my favorite line from the run. And it's not even not even said by one of the main characters, but it was an awesome line.
And if people want to read that, where can they go again, Ed?
Thrillbent.com, THRILLBENT.com, or just look up the app on on your favorite tablet.
Awesome. Thrillbent. Check it out. I like their business model. It's awesome. So hopefully we see more studios move in this direction. I think it's going to start small, like a company like Thrillbent, but once you get somebody like Image or somebody on board doing this, it could really mix up the market.
Oh, yeah.
But, Joe, what do you got coming up for this week?
Well, I'm going to briefly. I meant to cover this earlier, and it'll flow pretty well. But I meant to mention something about the Thor and Loki, the 10th Realm, original Sin tie-in that started this past week. Basically, Thor sees the truth that he's got a long-lost sister and a 10th Realm, so he goes straight home and confronts his mother about it, who initially says, "Oh, you're crazy," but then she acknowledges it, tells the tale about how they warred with that realm for so long, and she watched her this child get killed in front of her, but he believes that no, she's alive, and I've got to go get Loki and find her. So that's it was a setup issue, and it was really good. And of course, it's Angela, Steven, Angela from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
So she's gonna, this is gonna be, I think, maybe a 3 to 5 parter, but it started out pretty good, and I think Angela's been a really cool character, and I think that she'll fit really well, especially now that they're actually cementing her history into the Marvel Universe now. I like the retcon of it. But other than that, going into Original Sin this next week, we have Nova number 19, which I think covers what happened to his father, who is still alive, as well as I think it also talks a bit about Star-Lord as well, because they both went to the Cancerverse and were never heard from. And so a lot of people want to know how the Star-Lord got out of the Cancerverse, and I think that's covered in this issue as well. The main story continues in Original Sin number 6. Hulk versus Iron Man number 2 comes out. The will and confessional or whatever of the will and testimony of Charles Xavier starts out in the Uncanny X-Men number 23. Magneto number 7. Punisher versus Thunderbolts number 2 in the 28th issue of Thunderbolts, part 2, I should have said. The 100th anniversary issue in 2061 will be an X-Men title this week. Also X-Men number 16, Silver Surfer number 4, All New X-Factor number 11, and Savage Wolverine 21. Kind of a small week, but I think the substance will make up for the lack of volume or whatever you want to call it.
And Guardians of the Galaxy August 1st, most important.
Yes, go see Guardians of the Galaxy August 1st.
I didn't get a chance to see the 17-minute IMAX because I had literally just got back in the country about an hour before the showing was here in St. Louis, but a buddy of mine went, and he was indifferent on the movie going into it, knowing that I was a huge fan, so he went, and he's not a huge comic book reader. He's a big Punisher fan, and he was really surprised about how well it was done, is what he said.
You said he saw all of it, or just like 17 minutes?
I'm sorry?
You said he saw all of it, or like 17 minutes?
The 17 minutes.
Okay. I know they released a new TV spot this week, and it looked really good.
Yeah, they did. It was good. But it was interesting to hear from a neutral party who wasn't just a hardcore Guardians fan see it, and his reaction was overwhelmingly positive, and he said if the movie can keep up the pacing and the comedy that they had in that 17 minutes, he said it's going to be one of the better movies of the summer. So
I tell everyone to see it, and they're like, what? And I'm like, just go see it, August 1st. Guardians.
Yeah, I know. Half my friends are like, what is Guardians? Who are they?
You'll find out August 1st. Go.
Yeah. I just tell all my dumb friends, it's like, it's the Avengers, but they're in outer space. And they're funny. Just dumb it down for people. Just go, you once saw the Avengers, right? Then you need to see this. Awesome. Well, that pretty much wraps everything up for us this week. I hope everybody's getting ready to go to Comic-Con in a few weeks. Unfortunately, I'm out of vacation. Can't go. But it's on the bucket list for next year. Because my wife wants to go, most importantly. So that's always a good sign.
That's great, actually.
It's good.
So, everybody gear up for that. Thanks for watching The Stash. Keep reading The Stash on TMStash.com, and we will see you next week.